Good afternoon or good morning, ladies and gentlemen. In today's video, we are going to talk about insulin resistance, one of my favorite topics. What is insulin resistance? In short, I would say that is a silent killer, and I'm going to get into the long definition in a moment. What do you mean by insulin resistance is a silent killer? I promise that by the end of this video, you would understand that. Insulin resistance causes damages to almost all organs in the body. What is interesting is that when we get sick, most of the time, almost everything gets checked up and taken care of. But insulin resistance, diabetes is the main disease. We get to hear of insulin resistance most often in conventional medicine. Yet, insulin resistance remains the good foundation for health risks like diabetes, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, liver diseases, liver failure, kidney diseases, kidney failure, heart diseases, heart failure, stroke, cancer, brain disorders, brain diseases like Alzheimer, and the list goes on. May I ask you a question, please? In case you do not have diabetes, have you ever been tested for insulin resistance during one of your medical checkups? Please drop the comment down below and share your experience with us. Thank you. There are many people that have a chronic disease or diseases due to insulin resistance, or at least that insulin resistance has contributed to, that do not have diabetes at all. Similarly, there are also so many people that had passed away from a disease caused by insulin resistance that never had diabetes in their life. Insulin resistance is a public health issue. In today's video, I am going to share relevant information that you need to know for yourself and your loved one regarding insulin resistance. Please make sure you watch until the end. Stay tuned. Welcome to this channel. My name is Adeline. I am a doctor of pharmacy. What is insulin resistance? If you know the definition of insulin, you would understand insulin resistance very fast. So what is insulin? Insulin is an hormone secreted by the beta cells of the pancreas. It has receptors all over the cell surface. It moves glucose or sugar from the bloodstream to inside the cells. Sugar normally is sucrose, which is the one we have on the table. Glucose we are normally talking about here is not sugar. Sugar is different from glucose, but because I am trying to use the language that everyone would understand, in this video and all my videos, I usually interchange glucose and sugar. But when we talk about glucose or sugar in the bloodstream, we are talking about glucose. You don't need to know the definition of the insulin I just shared. What I would like you to do is to picture insulin as a key that opens the cell's door in order for glucose or sugar to get into the cell. So we can define insulin as a key or keys that open the cell's doors for glucose to get into the cell. Insulin is an anabolic or synthesis hormone, meaning it contributes to the building up of the cells. Insulin has many roles in the body. Along this video, I am going to mention 3 of those roles. The first one is the one we just discussed, to move glucose from the bloodstream to the cells. The second one is to convert glucose to glycogen and also to convert the extra glucose to triglyceride that's going to be stored as fat. Another role of insulin is to inhibit or prevent the breakdown of fat or triglycerides to glucose. Glucose is the immediate form of energy of the body, I would resume the definition of insulin as follows. When we eat a meal rich in carbohydrates, whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, or snack, carbohydrates break down into many glucose that go to the bloodstream. The pancreas secretes insulin that remove the glucose or sugar from the bloodstream to inside the cells. After the cells use glucose to manufacture the quantity of energy the body needs at the moment, insulin now converts the leftover, the surplus of glucose to glycogen or to triglyceride or fat. So the main role of insulin is to maintain glucose in the normal range in the bloodstream by sending glucose to the cell for immediate use by regulating the conversion of the extra glucose to glycogen and fat or triglycerides. Now that you have an idea of insulin, what is insulin resistance? Insulin resistance is the inability of insulin to act as a key to open the cell's door in order for glucose to move from the bloodstream to the cells. In other words, the cells are no longer sensitive to insulin anymore. What causes insulin resistance, or what causes some cells not to take glucose anymore, not to be sensitive to insulin anymore? Nobody really knows. While the mechanism is not understood, one of the main reasons is that the cells are full and cannot take in glucose anymore. In the rest of the video, I am going to do a simulation, a kind of imitation of how insulin resistance happens. Before I start with this activity, I want to put a disclaimer here that this is not actually how insulin resistance happens. This is just my idea to help you understand, or at least have an idea of how insulin resistance happens. And that's because insulin resistance is such a hot topic now in health. On the internet, we hear about it now almost everywhere. But what is curious is that we don't get to hear about it when we go to the doctor office, right? Insulin resistance doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual, a progressive process. It takes around 10 years for the cells to become resistant to insulin. So we are going to pretend that this activity happens over a course of 10 years. Here I am going to present the material I have here. I do have glucose here, the quantity of glucose that we get from our meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Let's not talk about snack. So after having lunch, dinner, or breakfast with carbohydrate, we do have this amount of glucose that's gonna go into our cells. These balls represent the quantity of insulin required to send our glucose into the cells. And this is our pancreas that secretes insulin. And here I do have this balloon that represents the normal size of the cell. You can tell that it is fluffy here. It's very flexible. If I squeeze into it, you can see that it's very fluffy. Year one, when we eat a meal with carbohydrates, whether it's lunch or dinner or breakfast, we do obtain this quantity, this amount of glucose into the bloodstream, and our pancreas secretes this quantity of insulin to transport, to remove this glucose to our cells. Year 3 to 4, we have the same quantity of glucose in the bloodstream from our meals. But look at the size of the bowl. Our body now needs more insulin in order to remove the same quantity of glucose from the bloodstream to the cells. This happens during year 3 to full. If you take a look at our cell now, you'll see that it has gained some weight, and insulin is playing its other roles here. We say that it also allows the conversion of glucose to glycogen and the conversion of glucose to fat. At the same time, it also inhibits or prevents the breakdown of fat to glucose. Year 5 to 6, to do the same job, to remove the same quantity of glucose, look at the amount of the insulin requires. Look, poor pancreas. The pancreas was normally supposed to produce only this volume of insulin, but look at the size. It has to produce much more in order for the same amount of glucose from dinner or lunch or breakfast to get into the cell. You can tell that we are moving here toward hyperinsulinemia, which means too much insulin, high insulin in the blood. The cells are getting fat and fatter, and you can tell that insulin resistance is taking place. Depending on the genes and lifestyle, this is the period or where some people get some high blood sugar, maybe at the pre-diabetic level. Some people put on some weight, they gain weight, their BMI increase. You would notice sometimes that people may have central obesity at this time, and some other people, depending on their genes, will not have high blood sugar or obesity, but they will be having other problems that insulin resistance causes. Year 8 to 9, our pancreas is producing this quantity, this volume of insulin in order to send into the bloodstream the same quantity of glucose for some people. This is normally the volume or the quantity of insulin that the pancreas is supposed to produce in order to send that glucose into the cells. But look at the volume of this juice. The pancreas has to secrete this much insulin in order to get the same glucose that is only for some people. This is hyperinsulinemia, too much insulin in the body. And you know, because of high insulin, fat cannot be breaking down, so they get accumulated into the cells and get bigger and bigger and bigger. Look at these cells that we had in the beginning that was very small and fluffy. Look at how big it is now. This cell cannot get more glucose in because it has reached 10 times more its normal capacity. In some individuals, this quantity of insulin would be able to manage to remove all the blood glucose or blood sugar from the bloodstream and send them to the cells. Unfortunately, in some other individuals, all this quantity, this volume of insulin will not be able to move even half or quarter of glucose from the bloodstream to the cells. And welcome to high blood sugar, and eventually welcome to type 2 diabetes in those individuals. Year 10. Around year 10, the beta cells of the pancreas get tired of overworking, of overproducing insulin. They cannot produce enough insulin to remove glucose from the bloodstream, and even the small quantity they are able to produce, the cells cannot use them properly. The cells are resistant to insulin. So as a result, the majority or a good quantity of glucose or sugar stay into the bloodstream. Type 2 diabetes. Question: does insulin resistance always lead to type 2 diabetes? Answer: No, type 2 diabetes is only one of so many diseases that insulin resistance causes and that we are not aware of. Another question: does insulin resistance always lead to obesity? The answer is no, it does not. Many people have insulin resistance and they have a very nice low BMI. As I mentioned in the beginning, many people that suffer from issues caused by insulin resistance do not have diabetes. They don't even have diabetes in their genes, but they suffer from so many other problems, so many other things caused by insulin resistance. And it actually depends on everyone's genes and lifestyle. The very big problem with insulin resistance is that it's silent, and insulin resistance test is not done at the hospital most of the times. When people go to the hospital, they do their checkup, they do blood work. Most of the times the lab results come back normal. Insulin resistance is actually taking place, it's going on, but because there is no test for that when doing your checkup, you never know that something is going on when it's actually causing so many damages into the body. The people that get to know that most of the time are the people with diabetes. That's when they take a look at your insulin to see what is going on. But when they don't see anything wrong with your blood sugar, most of the time they're not going to take a look at what is going on with insulin. If you have gained some value from this video so far, please like and share. It makes a difference. Thank you. If you would like to know more about insulin resistance and how to reverse it naturally, I do invite you to watch this video on insulin resistance syndrome or metabolic syndrome. This video about insulin resistance is actually the introduction of type 2 diabetes. I wanted to film the video for type 2 diabetes, and I noticed that with insulin resistance it would be too long, so I decided to do insulin resistance as one video and do type 2 diabetes as part 2. So if you want to know how type 2 diabetes is contracted, you already know how insulin resistance happen, please watch part 2, which is type 2 diabetes. If you do have any question regarding anything I have said in the video, please don't hesitate to comment or send me a message to my Instagram. And if you would like to be notified the next time I post a new video, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you. Life is so stressful. Please do me a favor. Spread love near you. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate you. See you in my next video.